let's start with the pieces for the Heartbreaker crossbody bag. So this is the main panel. I decided to try an applique for the front of the bag, and then the back is this, but it'll have the slip pocket on the top. This is the lining for the bag. And now this is what the slip pocket looks like. It will basically be like this. So it'll look like that, and then the lining for that slip pocket is the same as the lining for the main panel. I cut this slip pocket in this fabric for the lining of the bag. I decided to do the slip style for the lining as well. Here are the other pieces. This is the gusset and the bottom gusset. It's already interfaced. I interfaced it with Decoville Heavy, a piece of Decoville Heavy, and then I put a woven interface on the top just so it'll hold it better. And I did interface the gusset with Decoville Light and woven on top of it as well. And I interfaced my woven. These are the D-ring holders. I made them a little bit longer because I wanted to change up the style that I'm gonna be making them, and I put Decoville Light just in the middle so that when I fold it in the middle, the strength will be there. I decided on this red zipper tape with gold teeth for the bag. I think it would look nice. And then I decided to go with 2 zipper pulls instead of 1 because I couldn't decide which one to use, so I'm just going to use them both. I have the D-rings for the sides. So I'm doing a simple one, I'm not making it convertible. And then the hardware for the strap. These are just some tools to keep handy. Obviously clips is one of them. So I got my clips. I have my double-sided tape to help me put on the zipper tape to the gusset. I have my ruler just in case. I also have my stiletto right next to my machine. Remember, it doubles as a seam ripper just in case. And because this is a bound bag, I'm going to be using this black binding that's ready to use. I'll link it down below as well. The first thing I'm gonna do for the crossbody bag would be to do the applique, get that out of the way. And I've already interfaced my fabric. I think it will be better for the vinyl to have that structure. So I don't have a lot of experience with applique, I'm just going and winging it right now, but that's the only way to learn, right? So I am going to tackle the applique first, and we will see how that goes. The way that I'm going to keep this secure while I'm sewing, so it's not like moving around, I'm going to use double-sided tape. Shit. The way that I'm going to keep this secure so it's not moving while I'm sewing, I'm going to put double-sided tape on a few of the key areas, probably like all around, honestly. I don't want any of it to move. And then I will get that done, and then I'm gonna go to the machine and get it stitched out. So I just finished the applique for the piece. Took me quite a bit to get it ready, but it's done. Now we can put it to the side. Now we can work on the pieces for the D-rings. As I mentioned before, I put Decoville Light in the middle of these. Now I'm going to put tape on the long edges of each side so that I can bring it to the middle. Now we take the sides off. And we just take it to the middle. I'm eyeballing this because it really doesn't have to be perfect. So now that they're taped, I'm just gonna go to the machine, I'm gonna top stitch on each of the long sides. So I did the top stitching for the D-ring holders, and now I'm going to grab my D-rings and I'm going to insert one of the sides here. I'm going to lower this end and then I'm going to bring the bottom edge up, so that way the edges are concealed on the inside. And it should look something like this. I'm going to use a little piece of double-sided tape to keep it together while I'm finagling with it. I'm going to put it right here, and that little piece of tape will keep it together, and it'll also help me install it on the gusset. So now I'm going to grab my gusset, and in the pattern she specifies the markings that need to be made for the placement of the D-rings, so go look for those in the pattern, but I've already marked mine. And I am going to put the D-rings in. I'm going to put this to the side. I'm going to fold it a little bit just to see what the middle mark is so I can have a better idea of it. So it's like around here. I'm going to not eyeball it, but kind of. You kind of want to feel your way, so at the bottom of the ring, like around here, that's what you want on the gusset. So I put that there. And now I'm going to the other side. And I'm going to do the same thing. So for a gusset, both D-rings have to be looking towards the inside of the gusset. They both have to be looking at each other. So now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to top stitch this in place. I'm going to do a stitching right under the D-ring. I'm going to go over these stitches, and then I'm going to go across to the other side and over these top stitches as well. I'll probably end up putting a rivet here just for extra security. I'm going to do the same thing on both D-rings. I did the top stitching for both of the pieces. Instead of back stitching, what I did is I left the thread long, and what I do is then I go to the back and then I pull the thread. By pulling the threads to the back, we don't have the back stitching anywhere on the top of the connector. It just looks a little neater. I'm usually a little paranoid and I do a couple knots just to keep it safe. Alright, now it's time to add the zipper tape to the gusset. What we're going to do is that we're going to put them right sides together, so the pretty side of the fabric with the pretty side or correct side of the zipper tape, and we're going to put them right sides together. So we're going to sew it like this. So make sure that the edges on the short sides are aligned, and make sure that your zipper tape is aligned to that corner. Because I want to make sure that I don't mess it up, I have put double-sided tape on this edge of the zipper tape to just keep it in place. And then I'm going to go baste it on my machine. So now that it's taped on that edge to keep it secure, I'm going to go to the machine. I'm going to do a 1/8 of an inch stitching all on this side. I'm just going to baste it here on this edge. Now that this is basted together, I'm going to grab the lining and I'm just going to put it right sides together aligned with the edges, and I'm going to start clipping it in place. So now that it's all clipped together, I'm going to go to the machine and I'm going to sew it at 3/8 inch. So now that we've stitched on the lining at 3/8 of an inch, I'm going to flip them and put them wrong sides together. So I'm going to put the not so pretty sides together. I'm going to align it, because this is going to pull on you. Like, the zipper does not want to lay that way, so it's just going to pull a little bit. So I'm just going to grab some clips to keep it in place. I'm going to do the same thing on the long edge. You can put as many clips as you want and feel comfortable with. These are just here to help keep that lining in place. Also remember, when you're top stitching, when you're reaching the zippers, just move them away. Just be careful not to move them too far away, but just move them away from the zipper foot so that you can top stitch cleanly right there. Okay, so the top stitching is done, and I forgot to add my rivets into them, so I'm going to put 2 rivets on each D-ring holder just to give it a little more stability. The reason I'm doing it now is because after this we're going to sew the bottom gusset, and then we're going to stitch all over this, so then we wouldn't be able to get in here. So I'm going to go attach those now, and then I'll be right back. Alright, now that I've installed my rivets, now we're going to add the bottom gusset piece. I'm going to grab the vinyl one, I'm going to flip it, I'm going to add it to this corner, I'm going to align it to the edge. Mine extends a little bit more to this side, so I'm just going to center it a little bit. There you go. Grab some clips and clip it in place. You can baste it if you want at 1/8 of an inch, but I'm feeling adventurous, so I'm going to proceed to adding the lining piece. And since it's directional, I'm going to make sure it's aligned, and I'll align it to that short edge, just like I did with the front edge, and clip it in place. And now I'm going to take it to the machine and stitch at 3/8 inch of allowance from the short edge. Now that we have stitched this at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, I'm going to flip the vinyl, and I'm going to flip this so that they are wrong sides together. And now I'm going to go to the machine and top stitch on this edge at a 1/8 seam, 1/8 inch seam allowance. Alright, so now that we did the top stitching on this edge, we're going to grab the vinyl edge, we're going to bring it onto this side, and we're going to clip it right here. And we're going to go to the machine and baste it at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance right there. Alright, so I've got this basted on this edge, and you see that the lining is loose. That's how we want it. That's okay. So if you're seeing this part of it, flip it. It's going to get a little funky in this area, but in the pattern she gives this method to attaching that lining piece to this edge that we need to do. So we're going to roll this up into like a little burrito type thing. So we're just going to roll. Like I said, it's going to be a little funky. But now we've seen that this is loose, and we're going to match it up with this right here. And now we have to flip. The material that I chose is fighting me a little bit. It does not want to be there. but I'm going to secure it. And there it is. It's gonna look a little wonky, a little funky right here. But now we're going to take this little roll over to the machine and we're going to stitch on this edge at 3/8 inch. Alright, so we've done our 3/8 stitching on this side. So we just gotta push this out of either way. So now that we flipped it, I'm going to go to the machine and top stitch on this edge. Okay, I've done the top stitching, so now we're going to baste all around the gusset just to keep everything in place. I'm going to baste on this edge to keep these secure. You don't need to baste along the zipper because it doesn't have anything else on the bottom. But then on this edge, the one that does not have the zipper, we're going to baste all around the gusset at a 1/8 inch seam allowance. We've basted all along the outer edge of our gusset and also on this little side here. So now we can work on the pockets for the bag. I decided to do the same type of slip pocket for the inside and the outside of the bag, so I just cut another pair of the fabric for the inside. What we want to do with this pocket is we want to grab the exterior and the lining and we're going to put them right sides together. And I don't know if you can tell, or if you can kind of see this. And this little pattern has like a little notch on the edges. So that's what we're gonna sew. So we're gonna clip all around the top part of the heart, and we're gonna start and stop at those little notches. So now that it's all clipped and secure, we're gonna go to the machine and stitch it at 3/8 inch seam allowance from this edge. Alright, so I've sewed up both of my pockets and now I'm going to use my pinking shears to cut around these edges so that when I turn them, it'll lay nicely. If you don't have pinking shears, you can just use regular scissors and just cut little notches over here and there without cutting into that stitching. Okay, I've already done the shears, so now I'm just going to turn these pieces right side out. Depending on the material that you choose, it might be a little bit, it might fight you a little bit, depending on what material you choose, but I am sure that when I do the top stitching for this, these edges will hide, because I'm going to basically like pull on it a little bit, and I'm going to clip these edges on that side, and that will pull the lining side to the back. I can also finger press if I want to, and I can hide it at the same time. But once I top stitch, it'll be fine. So since this one is cotton, it didn't fight me too much. So what I'm gonna do is that I'm going to turn on my iron, and I'm actually going to iron it a little bit just so it lays a little bit better. So I'm gonna go to the machine and then I'm going to top stitch this edge that we just sewed. Okay, so these pieces are top stitched. I'm going to put the lining pocket to the side. So I am going to place my bag tag in the pattern she specifies the measurement. I'm gonna go install my tag and be right back. Okay, so I added my tag to the pocket piece of the back part, and I also brought in my main back, and this is basically how it's gonna be put together. So I'm going to lay this over, and now I'm going to clip around these edges of the heart to keep it in place so I can baste it in a second in the machine. So if you made a pocket that has a zipper, this would be the lining that would go with the back side of it. But because I made the heart-shaped slip pocket into this piece, I'm just gonna lay it on top, and I'm going to place them together and then clip them as well. Using these same clips, I'm just gonna open them up and slide them in there so I can just start putting it together. So now these clips are holding both pockets from the front and the back. Now I'm going to add clips around the other edges that are unclipped, so to keep the main part, to keep the exterior and the main lining together. I'm going to bring in my main panel. This is the front part of my bag and the lining for that part, and I'm gonna do the same thing that I did with the back piece. I'm gonna clip it all around the edge. So let's go do some basting stitches to keep this all together. We're almost done. So now that we've basted this, we're gonna put the main front panel to the side. And now we're gonna work with the gusset and the back panel. So I've turned my gusset inside out, so the lining is looking out, exterior is on the inside part. And with the marks that she gave us in the pattern, we're going to align the bottom gusset piece with those lines. We're going to align the part that doesn't have the zipper with the back side of the purse. I'm lining up the marks first with the gusset. Now I'm finding my other mark. Here it is. And then I'm going to clip all the way around the bag. So I've clipped all around my bag, and my gusset is fighting me here a little bit for this curve for some reason. So I'm just going to clip with my scissors some little notches so that it opens up and it goes with the curve a little bit easier. Now we're gonna go to the machine and sew all around these edges at 3/8 seam allowance. Go slow. There's no rush. Take it slow and you'll see that it'll turn out great. We've done it. It was a little tricky for me, but hey, we made it. And it's okay if it's a little, you know, wrinkly in places. But we did it, and that's all that matters. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're going to put binding, which is this. I buy mine. You can make your own as well, but I prefer to just buy it to just get it out of the way. Something else I need to worry about. So I'm going to start putting the binding on the raw edges. This will hide all your raw edges, and it'll also give your bag a little bit more of stability. It feels like it gives it a little bit more bones. I don't know. But if you see that your binding doesn't cover your 3/8, if you feel like your binding doesn't cover your thread, you can cut away a bit from the outside so that your binding covers everything. I'm also going to change my thread color to black, just so if I make a mistake or something, it's a little bit more, it's a little less visible if I make a mistake. All right, so it's all bound and ready to go. Let's go to the machine and stitch it in place. All right, so we did the binding. Now it's time to flip your bag And basically do the same thing with your front panel. Remember to do the marks that she specified in the pattern so that you can put the gusset the way it's supposed to be. We're just going to do the same thing that we did on the back panel. We're going to do it in the front panel as well. It's the same thing, only difference is that this one has the zipper side, but we're going to install it the same way. So clip all your edges. So now I got it all clipped up. Let's go to the machine and sew it at 3/8. Alright, so I ended up opening the zipper just because it was easier to stitch that way. As if you can see, my stitches aren't perfect. I had to fix a little bit of the zipper here. But it was a little bit difficult, but it's okay. That's why we keep practicing, right? So now it's time to add binding on this side, just as we did with this side, we're going to do with this side. So just be careful with your binding, and again, try not to cut too much of the zipper because it can unravel with time. But other than that, we just need to do that final binding and our bag will be done. A little tip when binding around the zipper, try not to bind it too close to the zipper so your zipper doesn't get stuck. So just give it a little bit of space and push your binding over to the back side. But still cover your stitches, of course, but you know, just give it some space so it doesn't get tangled up when you try to open and close the bag. All right, you're done. So now it's time to just flip it and let's see how it turned out. Depending on the type of material that you decided to go with, it might be a little bit stiff in the beginning, but let's see how it turned out. So all I'm doing right now is just pushing the binding and kind of like rolling it in my fingers. So she gives us the option of top stitching over here. I'm not sure if I want to top stitch. Probably think about it. But if you do top stitch, I believe that means that the binding would have to go under. That's a lot of bulk. So let me see, so that I can see what it looks like. Just have to give it a little bit of time so it gets to the shape that it needs to get. But I think I'm gonna leave it without the top stitching. But she tells you how to do it in the pattern, but I think it's okay without the top stitching. I don't know. I'll probably decide later if I want to do it or not. But here you have it. This is my version. I love how wide this bag opens. It's just so comfortable.